All right, guys, welcome to Submission Radio Morning After. I'm Dennis Karatov. I'm joined here by some very special guests, and this is going to be a very interesting episode as we join you after a crazy UFC 321 episode, a 321 pay-per-view. Before we get started, I just want to thank my sponsor Manscaped, who brought this to you. You can check out the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, White Hot Ultra. It's the best looking lawnmower out there. Make sure to check it out. But let me introduce our guests because there is some serious business to get to. If you guys have questions, make sure you throw them in the chat. Of course, super chats get to the front if you become a member that supports the program. Now, let me introduce our guest. First things first, he's become one of my favorite regulars here on the program. You know him from his own show, Fight Court, and absolutely killing it on the analysis when it comes to various shows that he's on as well when it comes to the UFC. Of course, he's also the corner for many fighters, epic career himself, just a genius in the game. Dean Thomas, welcome to the program, my friends.
It's good to be back, man. I'm just happy that you have me on as frequent as you do, man. I love it.
And my other good friend here, I got a square on my face, Rick, so I have to fix this square up. So I'm gonna introduce you, dude. You're obviously one of the best in the game yourself. Boys in the back, Errol Hawani Show, joining me after a massive live watch along. New York Rick, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm in the presence of royalty, Dean Thomas, the man. But also, I didn't realize that square was part of the show and going out to the people. That's a bit embarrassing for you, Dennis.
That's not good. All right, so Rick, you hold court for a second. I'm just going to quickly fix the camera. Okay, I'll be right back in 2 seconds.
Wow, I love that. He's just like, he just hands it off, like hold court.
He's nothing. Like, hold court. I gotta.
He doesn't even throw out a question for us to react to. He kind of just says hold court. All right, let's start with the obvious then, Dean. The eye poke in the main event between Tom Aspinall and Ciryl Gane. What was your reaction to the way it was all handled? By the referees, how Tom Aspinall handled it, and ultimately what ended with the no contest.
All right, first I gotta address it with this because, and this goes for not just this issue, but so many issues that we have in MMA, and that is we get like what we see on the surface, and then we make these like general statements based on what we see on the surface, and all these things have bigger issues, and I'm gonna prove it throughout the entire show today. So this eye poke, we need, first off, eye pokes should automatically be a point deduction, no matter what. We have to discourage fighters from having their hands open. And this happens because they're panicky, they get a little nervous, and they have disregard, and they're irresponsible with their weapons. It should be an automatic point so they know, don't open your hands. They get warned in the back. Why are we warning them again? Now, in this very specific situation, Tom got poked. It was very clear, very evident, and you can't blame him for not wanting to continue. I mean, it sucks, it's terrible, but you can't blame him for not wanting to continue. But I do firmly believe that eye pokes should automatically be a point deduction no matter what. We have to discourage fighters from doing it and getting away with it and be like, oh, my bad. Point right away.
Yeah, well, by the way, I'm back. No square, Rick. Do I look good?
You look good, but I was gonna say take the day off. Like I had a follow-up question and everything, but no, you
go.
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 It's your show. No, you go.
I want to hear the follow-up question as I bring up this eye poke here on the screen for those that missed it.
Yeah, let us see it.
It was a double eye poke over here. Let's have another look at it right here. Almost looks like that right eye copped the worst eye poke.
The worst one, yeah.
Yeah, look at that right there. It's interesting what you say there, Dean, because I want to get your guys' thoughts on some of the comments from the media. A few people with a few interesting takes here. Chael Sonnen, Tom Aspinall said, I got eye poked in the eye and I can't see. You got poked in the eye and you're injured. That's a different convo. But if you got poked in the eye and can't see, generally in our sport, we fight through it. Anthony Smith, Chael made a poetic point. You have to be used to or willing to fight with one eye. I did it in Singapore. Michael Bisping. Tom is the champion of the world. He doesn't want to go out there when his vision is impaired, massively affected, and potentially is a fight that was shaping up to be a difficult fight. Ciryl Gane was on point. You saw the damage on Tom's face. This is not an easy fight by any stretch of the imagination. He didn't want to continue with his vision being damaged and not being able to see. I don't blame him. Rick, there are people out there saying that basically maybe Tom should have continued. What do you make of some of these points from Chael and Anthony about how it's a part of the game?
I personally don't agree with that. I lean more toward what Michael Bisping said, and it sounded like, Dean, maybe you fall in that camp too. But I kind of want to follow up on something you said, Dean, which is, let's say Tom Aspinall knows that that's an automatic point deduction, right? And he's sitting there and knowing at worst in this fight after one round, like, because it's kind of toward the end of the round, I'm looking at worst 9-9, right? If I lost this round, I'm looking at worst 9-9. Do you think that impacts his decision on whether he wants to continue or not? Because let's say he's poked in the eye, and in the current scenario, there's no point deduction. He's looking at, okay, I probably lost that round. It's 10-9. I'm compromised. It makes it much easier to kind of make the calculus of, I don't want to continue this fight. But if it's 9-9, do you think that affects his calculus on how he wants to continue?
I don't think so. I don't think and you're in that situation and everything's going, regardless of how the fight's going, when you're in that situation and you are a fighter, you're not thinking about what the score is in terms of, 10-9. I got 4 more rounds to try to catch up, or 10-10. No, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking, I can't see. My eye is busted up. Now, if he was in the back and before the fight started and they were doing the physicals and he couldn't see, he wouldn't be allowed to fight.
Right.
He would not be cleared to fight. And it's not like it was a legal technique where he got punched and it happened. It was an illegal technique, an eye poke. So you have to cut him some slack. I'm 100% with Michael Bisping on this. I don't agree with Anthony, and I don't agree with Chael in terms of being able to fight when you're compromised like this, especially when it was an illegal technique. Now, if he got punched in the eye and couldn't see, you fight through that. But when you get poked in the eye, an illegal technique, and you can't see, I'm out.
There's too much on the line for these guys, right? Tom Aspinall just became undisputed champion of the world. Jon Jones had held him up for a year and a half. And this is the first fight that he has the opportunity to kind of get the share in that profit sharing with the UFC and make his bones. And there's too much on the line. You can't risk going into that fight. Like, think about we saw the Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny fight where there was a improper action by the referee there, and Jake Matthews goes on to continue that fight and then loses to Neil Magny. There's just too much at stake for these fighters. You can't blame Tom Aspinall for going, I want to retain my belt, fight properly when I'm not compromised by an illegal blow. And I think he deserves that credit. I think he deserves that leeway to be able to do that. I'm kind of surprised by the fan sentiment here, where everybody's saying that he quit and he's looking for a way out and all this, because I thought Tom was a little more beloved by the fans. But maybe this is just a product of anybody who kind of doesn't continue the fight is going to bear the brunt of this.
No, man, it's the MMA fans, man, and they're brutal, man. What an unforgiving, brutal sport, like, especially for Tom. Think about what Tom has been through in the last couple of years. He waited for Jon. He had to wait for Jon. Jon took a fight with Stipe, and like nobody wanted that except for Jon.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted that, and Tom had to wait. He fights for an interim belt. He gets the interim belt. Then he has to defend the interim belt. Now he gets an opportunity, and we put this unfair expectation on Tom that he had to do better than Jon against Ciryl Gane. He goes out there, he doesn't have the round that he wants. He gets poked in the eye and is like, yo, man, I can't see. What am I supposed to do? And he doesn't fight. And now everybody's on his case. We did Tom Aspinall completely wrong. It is unfair how we treated this man. And I feel bad for him. He's got to be looking in the mirror like, yo, I hate MMA.
Well, you saw the post-fight interview. It was a brutal situation, Dean, where Tom was standing there going, why are you guys booing me? I can't see. It was kind of heartbreaking to see Tom have to go through that after what you mentioned, being on the shelf basically for 15 months, having to go through the Jon Jones saga, and then going into this fight. I was talking to Oscar Willis about this last night, going to this fight with kind of an unfair expectation from fans. It felt like everybody just thought if he doesn't just run out there, tackle Gane and submit him in the first round, that it's, it's against what they expect. And at the end of the day, Ciryl Gane, he came out there and he put on a decent performance. But for Tom Aspinall, I mean, the fight was only getting started as well. I want to go to you first, Dean. A lot of people complimenting Gane on the performance that he had. Obviously, that expectation was there that Tom was just going to shoot across from the ring and take him down and submit him or just knock him out. And we saw Gane was able to land some shots. He was able to bloody Tom's nose up. One of the evident things in the fight was, Tom Aspinall did an incredible job of cutting off the ring, but while he was doing it, he didn't have much head movement. So Gane was able to use a jab, and he was able to land on him probably easier than many people thought he was. How do you break that round down up to the eye poke? Did you have Gane winning it?
Yeah,
What
for
was
sure. Gane was
yeah.
winning the round based on damage alone. But here's the thing. Again, like I said earlier, we see what we see on the surface. We see the blood. Tom didn't go across and just dominate him like we thought he was. So we're actually giving Gane maybe a little bit more credit because he was doing great. And that's expected, actually. So, and I expected the first couple of rounds to be really competitive. I mean, both are great fighters. We wrote Gane off. Again, I'm going deeper than just what we see on the surface. We wrote Gane off because of that poor performance that he had against Jon Jones. And that poor performance wasn't based on his skill set. That was based on the fact that he was so shook at Madison Square Garden. Donald Trump out there, Tom Brady out there. This man was completely shook. He didn't put on a great performance. And most people don't understand that because they don't have relationships with fighters. They don't know what fighters are going through. And I could see it in his face. He didn't want to fight that night. I think Ciryl Gane would do better against Jon Jones today than he did back then. So when we saw Ciryl Gane doing what he was doing to Tom Aspinall, we said, oh my God, this guy, he got beat up by Jon Jones and now Tom Aspinall can't handle him. Oh, so Tom Aspinall obviously can't handle Jon Jones. Unfair to everybody involved. Ciryl Gane is better than what he showed against Jon Jones. Ciryl Gane was having a good round against Tom Aspinall. Not to say that he was going to win the fight or that Tom was going to come back and win, but it was a competitive fight as you would expect any heavyweight fight to be.
I was going to say, Rick, as you go, Tom was setting up his shot. He was cutting off the cage. It looked like he was building towards something. You know, obviously, like Dean said, you see some blood on someone, and people who watch the sport maybe a bit more casually think, oh, it might be all over. But Tom was working in that octagon. He was working towards setting up his shots. He was already starting to land. He landed a couple of clear shots on Gane straight through the middle there. It looked like he was getting his distance down and, you know, still getting the ring rust off maybe a little bit from this break.
Yeah, could not agree with that more. Could not agree with Dean more that I think Gane is getting credit because of the last performances. Not only did he have the Jon Jones performance, but then he also had the Volkov performance, which I scored for Volkov, and I think many others did, where it was supposed to be Gane winning that fight, and he did ultimately get the decision, but I don't think the decision was correct in that bout. And so Gane's stock was at an all-time low, and I think we're giving him more credit. I went back, I watched the first round again. It was a clear round for Gane for me, but it wasn't this like lopsided decision. I tweeted this out and it continues to remind me of this, and I don't know why this narrative is taking hold, but it reminds me of the first round of Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards, in which Leon Edwards was clearly winning the fight. The first fight, I should be clear. The first fight between Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad. Leon Edwards was winning that fight. It was a clear round for Leon Edwards. An eye poke happens at the 18-second mark of round number 2, and everybody just moved on from that fight. They're like, Bilal Muhammad stinks. Leon Edwards was going to go on to win that fight and whoop his ass. And I just don't see how you could come to that conclusion from one round of fighting. And it seems like people are coming to the conclusion that Ciryl Gane was going to win this fight. Oh my God, he was steamrolling Tom Aspinall. He's going to win this fight based on the 4 minutes of action that we got. And I just don't see that. Like, I saw a round where Ciryl Gane was clearly winning, but heading into round 2, I felt like Tom Aspinall was starting to pick up some things that he was going to be able to capitalize on, and I wanted to see the rest of that fight. And so it's unfortunate that it ended this way, but I'm seeing this sentiment like acting as if Ciryl Gane had already won this fight, and I just can't agree with that, and that Tom Aspinall looked for a way out because he was so scared of what Ciryl was able to do in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. I mean, when I look at that fight, I go, if you ask me, like, knowing what I know about fighters, Tom Aspinall knew he was going to be in a fight. He knew he had a very good opponent in front of him, and it was no need for him to go out and have to put that and live up to the expectation that we gave him. I think that's more than anything, that's what it was. I don't think he felt as though he had to go out there and steamroll this man. He was just fighting his fight. He realized he was in a 5-round fight, and he was losing the first round. That's fair to say. That doesn't mean he was going to lose the fight. It doesn't mean that he was going to win the fight, but he was losing the fight, and I think that he realized he was in a fight, and I'm more than willing to bet that he was going to make some adjustments and come back and probably do some damage later on in the fight.
We've got a super chat here, and I think this is the sentiment that you were saying, Rick. This is from Charles Chase. Can't see 40 seconds into 5-minute break. He wanted out. But I see that sentiment so much. It's crazy through the comments everywhere. I think people are so frustrated with heavyweight. What happened with Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall, even though it had nothing to do with Tom Aspinall, he had to start a camp basically like 3 times. And the expectation, like we said before, and also they paid money for this event, and then they got that conclusion. I feel like they're taking it out on Tom.
But But
Yeah,
why Tom? Why is Tom the target of this? He wasn't the one that was on the sidelines. That's Jon Jones. He wasn't the one that poked the person in the eye. That's Ciryl Gane. Why is all of the responsibility for everything that's happened over the last 2 years of heavyweight on Tom Aspinall? It feels like he's an unnecessary victim of all this nonsense. And the one thing I want to point out is in the post-fight press conference, Dana White kind of had an opportunity, in my opinion, to defend Tom Aspinall, to kind of like come to bat for Tom Aspinall when he was asked about this. And instead of saying, that's our heavyweight champion, this is an unfortunate turn of events, we'll move on to the next one and we'll rebook it, he kind of said that Tom didn't want to, quote unquote, like continue fighting. I feel like that kind of opened the floodgates, right? If Dana White comes out and says that, a lot of MMA fans kind of take their cues from that and look for, hey, if Dana's saying this, now I know that I'm capable of saying this too, and MMA fans just started piling on. But I don't feel like this is Tom's fault, and I don't know why all the brunt of this is falling on him.
Oh, we've done this before, and it's such a mob mentality in MMA. I swear, like I wake up on Sunday morning like I hate MMA. I do. I swear to God, I do. We've seen this before with Aljamain Sterling when he got kneed in the head. He got clearly kneed in the head. Got one of the most vicious strikers in the division of all time in the division, and people blamed him and got on his case about it. I'm like, yo, why are we always pointing the finger at the guy who did nothing wrong? I don't understand it, but when it happens, it's so unfortunate because you almost can't shake it. I don't know if Tom can shake this. Like, Tom's going to have to really go out there and knock out the next 3 guys clean in under a minute to be able to shake something like this.
It's absolutely brutal. Dean, Tom B wants to know, do you think Tom needs some adjustments even after just one round with Gane leading in their rematch? Kind of early to tell, man. Again, it looked like to me Tom was setting stuff up. Maybe not as much head movement. He was wearing the shorts from Gane, but from what I understand, the way Tom spars and the way their sparring sessions go, it's pretty full on. There's not as much head movement, and I think he was just trying to get his distance down. I don't think those shots from Gane, while they bloodied up his nose, I don't think they were. I think he was happy to sort of slip them slightly so he can get his shots in. But I don't know. What do you think? What kind of adjustments would you want to see from Tom?
Well, I went on record to say this earlier, always and before. That Tom's biggest issue, if I had any gripe with his fighting style, was that he punches with his head up. Like he enters and he leaves with his head up. He enters with his head up. He leaves with his head up. He's been clipped before. Volkov clipped him. Pavlovich clipped him. Curtis Blades, like he's been clipped before. None of them did the surface damage that we saw with Gane. It was a matter of time before that it happened in a pronounced way like we saw last night. So the idea that it's something new that he needs to make adjustments, these are adjustments that he had needed to make before. He needs a little bit better head movement or just to be able to point his forehead down when he's entering or leaving with punches.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, though, because it was leading somewhere, right, Rick and Sergey?
I was just going to say, Dean made this point earlier, and it's the point that I think is the most important, which is Tom Aspinall said heading into this fight that he does not think Ciryl Gane is a walkover. He does not think that this is going to be an easy fight, despite what the betting public believes. And I think a lot of the narratives on this stuff is always kind of influenced by the betting line. If you had that bet on Gane, you're salty at Tom Aspinall because you thought you were about to cash a winning ticket. But he was not one of those people who thought that Ciryl Gane was going to be a pushover. And so he was fighting like that. He was fighting like he knew he had to fight for 5 rounds or less, but wasn't necessarily interested in that kind of sprint mentality to try to take him out of there and do it faster than Jon Jones and any of that stuff. So look, we don't know what kind of like plans he had for round 2, for round 3, what that first round was going to end up building to. But Dennis, like you, I thought like, okay, by the end of round 1, I thought he was able to like pull it at least closer to even and look like he was going to, try to do something a little bit different in round 2. I hate the fact that the record on this fight is being set by 4.5 rounds of action.
You know what's crazy? That's exactly what MMA is all about, Dean. You said, Gane before this, people couldn't rate him less. Like people thought he was just useless. And now, a few hours later, Tom Aspinall, people think is like a coward. He's afraid. And then now Gane's like the new champion. He had stuff. Like a few hours before that, he had no chance. And then, of course, who jumps in? This man right here, Jon Jones. What did you make of this new emoji picture from Jon Jones, Dean, when you saw it?
It drives me nuts, actually. It's so convenient. It's so convenient because it's such surface level stuff. And Jon Jones is in such a good position because in some respects, like Jon has earned it because he's had such a great career. I mean, he's been beating guys up for a decade and a half. but to sit on the sideline and then have this be in this position where you just kind of laugh at the pain of Tom Aspinall, it's kind of unfair to Tom Aspinall. And I get it, Jon Jones can sit there and say what he wants, but the reality is that both guys would give him problems if he fought him. Let's be fair here. Ciryl Gane fought Jon Jones again, he'd give him problems. If Tom Aspinall fights Jon Jones, he'd give him problems. But it's easy for Jon Jones to sit on the side and just laugh because of what his history suggests.
Rick?
Yeah, I mean, just based on the way that my understanding of how the Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall thing played out, Jon was offered the money that he asked for to fight Tom Aspinall, and he decided against it after previously saying he would. So to me, like, it's easy for Jon Jones to sit there and snipe, but when the money was on the table and the fight was offered to him, he didn't want a part of it. Now, don't get me wrong. As Dean said, Jon Jones has earned that. There's no dispute on who the MMA GOAT is in my mind. I don't care. Like, you can have your GSPs, you can have Anderson Silva, you can have anybody you want. But for me, it's Jon Jones. But in this scenario, like, you kind of can't blame him. It's an easy opportunity. I just feel bad for Tom in all of this, right? Jon Jones gets to take the snipes at him, and that the fans are going to take their cues from that. Dana White seems to not be the biggest fan of Tom Aspinall at this point in time, and the fans are going to take their cues from that. The eye poke, the year and a half of inactivity, the fact that when Alex Pereira wins the fight, he's calling out Jon Jones instead of Tom Aspinall. It's all kind of like piling onto Tom, and I just feel like it's none of this is really his fault, and it's really unfortunate. But at the same time, Jon's earned the right to kind of do what he wants because he's the MMA GOAT.
What about this right here? Alex Pereira, let's make the heavyweight division great again. And then he's got the little stone versus the bone. Jon Jones, Alex, I'd be down to bring the highest skill level to the White House. I appreciate the respect you showed. Let's dance. Dean, what is happening right now?
I mean, I'm not going to argue with Alex on this. Like, Alex is, if I said that Jon Jones has earned the right to say something, Alex has also earned the right, and even more so because he's doing it currently, and he saved the UFC. And within that year he had UFC 300, and then what was it, 313, whatever it was, 303, whatever it was. Alex Bahed has really put himself on a different level from everybody else, so he can say what he wants. It's just so opportunistic for them at this point in time for them to be able to step up and say what they want. But the story is bigger than that. It really is. And it's when you look deeper into it, you can't help but to feel bad for Tom Aspinall. It's just, I just feel bad for him because they really made him look like a chump, and they made him look like he wasn't any good. And it's just like, and it was our fault because we put that expectation on him.
It's interesting though, because I agree with you, Rick. When Jon Jones wasn't really agreeing to fighting Tom Aspinall, Dana White was saying he's the greatest heavyweight of all time.
Yeah.
But then when this thing happens, he comes out and says it's a total pain in the ass, like just completely frustrated. Nope. And then we saw Rick as well, his dad speaking to a reporter saying how when this contract is done, he wants to see Tom go to boxing. Do you think that the treatment from the UFC for Tom Aspinall has been pretty unfair, especially after what happened just the other night?
I certainly think that has a contributing factor, right? That might not be something that you want captured and out there, and if you're the UFC to hear necessarily from the father and coach of your UFC champion. But yes, I do think Tom has gotten a raw deal, and I don't think it's like, it would be easy to just say the UFC doesn't like Tom Aspinall, but I think it's more of a momentum thing, right? Dean talked about why Alex Pereira can right now call a shot. And that's because Alex Pereira, for the last 3 years, has shown up every 2 to 3 months and knocked somebody out, right? When you have that kind of momentum, those are the things that come with it, right? You can call your shot. The promotion loves you. Tom's been out for the last year and a half, but it's not his fault, but he has been out, and he doesn't have that type of momentum. He doesn't have that type of leverage. He doesn't have Dana White fawning over him because he hasn't been in there. This was that chance for me. I think if Tom came out and had the performance that he wanted and knocked out Ciryl Gane, maybe it's round 2, maybe it's round 3, whatever it is, or submitted Ciryl Gane, where the promotion would have been like, that's our heavyweight champion. That's the guy that we've been waiting for. And unfortunately, he really didn't get that opportunity due to the accidental eye poke. But it's not a surprise to me that, he's kind of a little bit in the doghouse with the UFC, especially, following the comments by his father. But at the same time, again, none of this is his fault, in my opinion. Like this is the product of a system that kind of was created where he was waiting on the sidelines, asking the UFC for fights, asking for an opportunity to get back in there, and they were holding out hope that Jon Jones would change his mind, and he ultimately didn't. So I feel for Tom. I'm not surprised kind of by where things are. Hopefully that this gets rebooked for next 2 to 3 months, whenever it is, he can get back in there, get a win, and I think all will kind of like sort itself out by then.
I think does come down to this, and I want to, and I don't know, and maybe you guys have some insight on this. If how much Tom really wanted to fight during that layoff, in terms of was he willing, and how much was he willing to take a fight other than Jon Jones? Could he have fought then? Because to me, that seems to be the only way to save yourself in this industry, and that's to just keep fighting. I mean, we see Marab doing it, and we see guys like Kevin Holland doing it. Now, while it can be dangerous because anything can happen in a fight, it seems to be the only way to really stay in the good graces. And that's just to fight as opposed to waiting. Now, if he was waiting because the UFC told him to wait, then that's one thing. But if he was like, you know what, if I can fight, please give me a fight, then that may be a different subject.
My understanding of it is that Tom Aspinall was not the reason that he was out for that long. Is that the UFC really felt like Jon was on the goal line with that deal, and ultimately, they waited on Jon, and Jon pulled out of his side of the equation. Tom, to my understanding, Tom was not the holdup, and Tom was willing to put it on the line if he needed to.
By the way, shout out to Submission Radio member Dave S. Thanks for being a member. Don't forget to hit that join, subscribe, become a member, and throw your super chats in the question. Dean, I had someone here with a good point about, as a fan, you spent almost $200, $90 for the pay-per-view, $85 for the subs. Of course, you'll be pissed off. Should this rematch, is the smart move from the UFC here to put this rematch on for free? I feel like that would get, 100%. That would get good views.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now with the Paramount deal, it's all for free. Well, except
it's going to be free no matter what.
Yeah. So
yeah, but do they do it this year? Like, do we just do it this year? Not
oh hell no.
You can't. No, you can't do it this year. One, Tom is probably going to need a little bit of time to allow his eye to heal if it is as injured as I may think it is. And then two, like after coming off of camp, you kind of need a little bit of time to allow your body to readjust. But my guess would be they try to do this in February. Perhaps one of those pay-per-view, or not pay-per-views, but one of the numbered cards in February on Paramount.
All right. So we're going to rematch.
It makes all the sense in the world. That's what you do.
We're going to rematch this because the division is not in a great way. Dean, we saw DC pulled Tom Aspinall aside with a hot mic and basically trashed the entire division, speaking about how he was about to go on a generational run over people like Almeida, Volkov, and others in the division. And then we saw Volkov and Almeida potentially have the worst timed bad fight of all time when the division was on the line. Volkov walking away with a decision win on a fight where Almeida had him on the ground for the majority of it. I mean, could this be a worse fight at a worse time for the division on that card? These guys are fighting for potentially the next title shot. My God, man.
No, honestly. No, I blame the coaches for that. Honestly, I do. As a coach myself, I blame coaching for that, because one thing that I address in the room, and that is we have to win with style, and we have to train this way. We have to train to be aggressive. We have to train to do damage. We have to go out there and do it with style points. And so if you've seen the last few athletes that I've been working with Joe Pyfer. I've been working with Sean Brady. Sean Brady went out there with style points against Leon Edwards, put him away. Did it same thing with Gastelum, put him away. Joe Pyfer, put him away. And that's the goal here. And you got to go out there and do it with style points. I blame coaches for not instilling in their athletes, go out there and let's finish with style points. Jillian Robertson, style points. You got to go out there. You got to try to finish, because when you're putting on these bad performances, and you might squeak away with a win, no one cares. It doesn't do anything for your stock. This game is about doing it with style points. So I'm blaming the coaches for this. Let's train our athletes to do it with style.
Oh my God.
Can I throw Volkov some bail? Please? I just want look, he knew he was up against it in a style matchup where he was going to hit the ground, right? Like there was no doubt that Jailton Almeida's path to victory was to take him down. Now, you can't really teach Volkov to become like sprawl and brawl, Chuck Liddell, prime, overnight. And so he knew that when he was on the ground, he was going to have to work reversals. He's going to have to work sweeps. He's going to have to work damage from the bottom. And in my opinion, like, I thought his coaches did their job. Jolton Almeida's coaches did not. I don't know what the game plan was there. Once he had position and control, he really didn't do much of anything from top, and he rightfully lost that fight. But from what I saw from Volkov, he at least did a little bit in terms of prep for this fight and knew the strategy and was able to kind of, once on the ground, win it from the bottom with strikes. He had that nice sweep in the first round. And then he has a win, in my opinion. I know on the record it says a loss. He has a win over Ciryl Gane. I don't think you could do. I think you could do a lot worse than Volkov being like a number one contender type guy. Jolton Almeida has to go back to the drawing board, but I don't think it was like the worst performance from Volkov. To Dean's point, like, it wasn't the one that all the fans are going to be like, we need to see Volkov in a title shot. He's not going to do it with that performance, but I don't think it was like a horrific night for Volkov. I thought he did okay, and especially considering how that fight with Gane went. But Jolton Almeida needs to go back to the drawing board. That was abysmal.
Yeah, big opportunity. And I like you said, star points, Dean. That's a big thing right there. By the way, this chat is going off. People are really hating on Tom. People are asking, why did he wait 5 minutes to the eye test?
It's crazy.
Why did he pretend? Why did he switch eyes? Or like, people, it's just crazy, man. Like, what 24 hours can do. Let's have a look at the UFC rankings. We got Ciryl Gane. Obviously, that's going to be the rematch. Hopefully, they can make that as soon as possible. Volkov. And then after that, it just kind of falls off a deep end. Dean, is this the worst the heavyweight division has looked? What? When was the last time it looked this bad?
I mean, it's
even Tim Sylvia days.
No, let's be real, man. The heavyweight division has never been that great. It's always been very top heavy, regardless. It's never really been that deep. I just think that now, as things start to shake out, even the top heavy starts to look a little bottom low, right? So I think that it's never been that great. In fact, like 2 years ago, I thought we were in a good spot. I was thinking like, oh man, the heavyweight division is starting to look pretty good. But then as it starts to shake out, we start to see what these guys are what they really are. And then we go, oh man, this looks bad. But I don't know. We're just waiting for somebody to come in and be a killer. And if you are over 250 pounds and you can fight, please come and do something damaging in this UFC heavyweight division. There is a spot for you.
What if the light heavyweight champion of the world, who's an absolute killer, decided he want to come up to that division? That would be pretty appetizing. That would be pretty tasty. I feel like that guy could probably make some waves if Alex Pereira decided he really does want to do the damn thing. Also, we talked about style points, but don't sleep on my guy number 15, Walter Walker. Maybe a heel hook's coming in Tom Aspinall's future, and he could be the guy. But to Dean's point, like, this division has always been a wasteland. It's always been like, okay, we've got Kane and JDS, and who else do we got? Maybe we got Verdum, or it's been Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir. It's just like the division after the top 5 guys has always been weak. I do think it's at a really weak point, but that's why I think DC in that quiet moment with Tom on a hot mic was like, you're about to go on a generational run. If you could get a title defense against any of these guys, you're going to mop them up. And unfortunately, that plan kind of fell apart on Saturday night. But I do think there's an opportunity for Tom or Ciryl to potentially go on a big run if they can remake this fight.
Yeah, we always just had this stereotype that the heavyweight division was good just because it was the heavyweight champion of the world. So we just assumed and always gave it a little bit more credit than it deserved.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a boxing holdover. It's always been the glamour division of boxing, but I never feel like it's been the glamour division in the UFC or MMA.
I don't know about you guys, but when I saw Alistair Overeem sit down cage side there, I miss the old days with the Strike Force. People were there. Well, Mark Hunt was in the division just knocking people out. Verdum was in the division just doing crazy kicks at the start of his fight. Josh Barnett was submitting people in weird ways. Like, so much name value. Overeem. We used to have fight night cards just like Overeem in the main event, just fighting some guy and someone would get knocked out.
It's funny you say that and you talk about the other orgs. Like, it'd be nice to have a phone line too right now. Is like, how many fights does Francis Ngannou have left with the PFL? That'd be a name that if you brought him back in, that could be interesting for a Tom, for a Ciryl, for a John, for an Alex. If we get into the mix, now you start to have a top 5 or 6 that you could kind of have some interest in. So I don't know, maybe that's a phone call you make. I know Dana White, has said he's never going to talk to Francis Ngannou again, but he also said, Hunter was the one that was doing that deal. But I don't know, if Francis got 1 or 2 left, maybe that's a phone call you make.
Dean, who's the greatest heavyweight in the world right now?
To me, believe it, I don't know. I'm gonna catch some flack for this one, but I still think Tom is. Honestly, I really do. I still have faith in Tom. I think we just did Tom wrong, and he just didn't have the start of the night that we expected him to have. But I still believe that he's probably the best heavyweight in the world right now. I thought so going into this fight, and just because he didn't have the greatest first round doesn't change my opinion of him. All right, so and I'm going to stick with that because I'm not going to throw him under the bus and lose faith in him just because he was up in there with the second best heavyweight in the world and may have lost a round against the second best heavyweight in the world. So yeah, I still think, all things considered, to me, Tom Aspinall is still the best heavyweight in the world.
And Tom's been wanting to fight. He's been wanting to defend this title for ages. He's the only one out there that's actually trying to stay active and in competition. By the way, Rick, a lot of people are asking this. So I'm just going to ask you this. Do you think it should have been a no contest? Because this guy thinks
yes.
Tom quit.
No, Tom didn't quit. Yes, it's a no contest, and consider this a second vote for Tom as the best heavyweight in the world as well.
All right, so I'm not tripping, Rick. I'm not tripping. No. Okay,
this
all right, because I know.
Well, it would be him, Francis. Who else?
John's obviously in the equation if he fights. I feel the same. Look, I think people have kind of got like the sportification of MMA. Like MMA used to be more fun when it was like more of a circus, and now it's kind of just become this like stick and ball sport replica where they have the rankings and everybody's like, who's the GOAT? Who's the pound for pound? Who's the this? Who's the that? And you just kind of get lost in the sauce. Like, you know, I felt that even after Magomed Ankalaev beat Alex Pereira, that Alex Pereira was the best light heavyweight in the world. And we see in the rematch that probably that, you know, ends up being the case. I don't think one fight, I don't think one moment, and certainly not 4 minutes of a fight is the determining factor of who's the best in the world. Ultimately, I think night for night, you run the fight 10 times, Tom Aspinall wins. And so I'm going to take Tom Aspinall as the best in the world. But I do think the Johnny come lately, what have you done for me lately kind of sentiment of MMA fans has kind of skewed perspectives here. It is wild how disrespected Ciryl Gane was heading into this fight. And now he's the world beater. He's the king of everything. Meanwhile, last fight, he's scraping out a win over Volkov. It changes on one night.
See, Rick, I told you, when you get deeper than just the surface, there's a lot more to it. And sometimes that one night is affected by so many different things that we may not even know about. I don't know. He might have had bubble guts. You don't know what the situation, you don't know what the situation was, but we often just see whatever we see in that moment, and then we take that as the end all be all, and just disregard everything else. If you ask me, I still think Tom Aspinall is the best heavyweight, and like you said, Alex Pereira is the best light heavyweight, based on what I would think would happen in 10 fights or even 100 fights.
You know what's crazy as well for Aspinall? He had that knee injury in the main event against Curtis Blades, overcame that. Now he's got to overcome this eye thing, man. This is just ridiculous shit that shouldn't be happening to people that now he has to overcome. And he had to overcome this whole Jon Jones thing. By the way, Dean, speaking of heavyweight, how do you like this list? Kane, JDS, Overeem, Nelson, Stipe, Verdum, Brown, Bigfoot, DC, Struve, Mitrione, Mia Hunt, Crow Cobb, Big Nog. That's a fun heavyweight division. Man, that sounds like the kind of division that you could just put on fight night cards night after night for.
When was it, like 2010? That had to be like 2010.
It would have been one after they acquired Strikeforce. When they got Strikeforce, man, I mean, when they got Pride, it was huge. And then when they got Strikeforce, man, they got a lot of,
That was definitely it at its best, but like we got to be real with some of the rose-colored glasses nostalgia shit that happens too, right? Like that was not Hunt Prime, that was not Crow Cop Prime. Like now that we're looking at those names, we're thinking of like, okay, that's 2006 Crow Cop in there against Fedor. That is not what we saw in the early 2010s. And so some of this is that rose-colored glasses, but I will admit, like granted, those names at that time was still probably the peak of it, right? That was the best UFC heavyweight division that we had. But there's also a little bit of like nostalgia happening here as well.
By the way, Bigfoot Silva versus Mark Hunt in Brisbane, one of the craziest heavyweight fights anyone can watch. Dave S., someone could argue Jones and Nagano are best heavyweights in the world. I don't feel like Jon Jones is, even though he beat Stipe, I just feel like Nagano has had a real run at heavyweight. I still see Jon Jones.
Well, he also blew the brakes off Ciryl Gane. We can't discount that, right? We can't use it as a point of comparison to say if Tom Aspinall doesn't do this, he sucks. But we can use it as a point to say like, damn, Jon's still pretty freaking good.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, but I mean, it's hard to say when they're not active.
Yeah.
It really is hard to say when they're not active, and we're just basing our opinion on what they did even 2 years ago.
Yep.
Things change. Things change.
Dean,
Yeah, I mean, you even pointed it out. Ciryl Gane is not the same Ciryl Gane, right? He's better now than he was then.
I mean, he's 100% better now than he was then, but I also think that he just on that night, I think he just totally was like, how do I get out of this as fast as I can? No, because I'm telling you right now, from what I know of being in this game for over 30 years, whenever a fighter gets guillotined in a situation like that, they in some level were like, how do I get out of this? This is too uncomfortable for me. This is traumatic. I need to just get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Ciryl Gane had 3 massive moments, right? He fought, obviously against Francis. That didn't quite go his way. Then he fought Jones, and that really didn't go his way. And then I think he had to go away and deal with the comments that I'm seeing in the chat here, basically for years of people saying, yeah, he's not worth anything. And I think that moment motivated him to prepare properly and get in the right mindset for this fight with Tom Aspinall. But I think, in that Jon Jones moment, it was just too much for him. And the guy's so new to the sport. Like, it's just insane what he's had to go through. The guy, if you look at the experience level that he has, really shouldn't be fighting at the level that he's fighting until really now. So he had it.
Sorry, Dennis. No, you finish.
No, I was going to say, I think all of those experiences led to Gane being able to be ready for this moment against Tom Aspinall, where no one 100%. Thought he could do anything, Dean. And everyone just expected him to die in the middle of that ring in the first round. Now, anyway.
Dean makes an incredible point, and I don't think this point gets made enough, right? There's good nights, there's bad nights in MMA. And what's different about MMA compared to like these other stick and ball sports, right? Shohei Ohtani goes out and has a shit night. 2 nights later, even maybe the next night, he gets an opportunity to redeem that. In MMA, if you have a bad night, if you shit the bed on one night, you're done for 4 months. Everybody's already come to a conclusion about you for 4 months. You have another bad night, the next one, and people, and let's be honest, Ciryl Gane had a few bad nights in a row. All of a sudden, people think you're just completely done. But it's not reality. It's not how this sport really should be viewed. You have to take the totality of the work. You have to kind of look at style matchups. There's a lot more context required before you can make these sweeping generalizations, because these guys get 3, maximum 4, unless you're Kevin Holland, nights a year to really show what they're made of. And if one of those is a bad night, you've now 33% of your appearances for the year were a bad night. And it's a do or die. It's a really brutal sport to be a part of when you're the athlete in there having the performance, because if you have one bad one, it can really stick with you for a long time. And so that's what I hope Tom Aspinall can overcome. I think Ciryl has benefited from a good night, so I'm glad to see that. But it's a brutal way to make a living.
What about this, Dean? Lazy Bed bringing up this. Guys like Jim Miller go an entire 50-fight career never eye-poking anyone. Fellas like Ciryl Gane have eye pokes and back of head strikes every fight. Now, for those that don't realize, eye pokes do come from a more specific kickboxing style, because in kickboxing, when you create your distance, sometimes they'll have those fingers out as they create distance for their kicks or set up their positions. But, I mean, is Ciryl Gane, should he get a little bit more flack for what happened here, or for the fact that he has had a bit of a history of things happening in the previous fights?
Yeah, so this is, I got 2 different opinions on this. First one is that yes, you're right. Like, especially whenever I see guys train with big boxing gloves on, their hands are open in them big boxing gloves, so they just kind of get used to having your hands open, which is why I don't ever recommend my fighters training with boxing gloves. You should be training in MMA gloves. You need to get used to having your grip and then having the sense of being able to close your fist to create distance. So whenever guys are training with big boxing gloves, you're reinforcing this bad habit of having your hands open. Now, secondly, it's also a condition of panic a bit. And these guys, you see it all the time, they're a bit panicky and their hands are open and they're irresponsible because they just don't care. And that's why I believe you have to start taking points right away, and they should know it going in, because if you know it going in, you're going to be a little bit more concerned about where your hands are. But initially, like, if you don't care and you just think, oh, they'll just give me a warning anyway, you're going to go out there, your fingers are open, you'll grab the fence once or twice, but you should always have that in the back of your mind. It should be in your consciousness. Keep my fingers closed, don't grab the fence, don't poke eyes, because it's an automatic point and I just won't do it. But these guys, they get a little panicky, they get a little irresponsible with their hands, and that's why it's happening. It's the reason why Jim Miller doesn't do it, because he's a lot more aware and conscious of where he is in a fight.
Yeah, it's a great breakdown on that. Rick, if it is Alex Pereira and Jon Jones next, Jon Jones goes out there and beats Alex Pereira at this White House event, what does this mean for the division?
I don't know, right? The last time Jon Jones had the opportunity to fight Tom Aspinall, he didn't take it, right? And again, this is based on the reporting that we know, is that one side came to the table. Actually, two sides came to the table. The UFC came to the table with the money that Jon Jones asked for, and Tom Aspinall came to the table saying he was going to take the fight. Jon Jones was the one that opted out and was the one that didn't want that fight. So if he beats Alex Pereira and Tom Aspinall beats Ciryl Gane, I don't know what it means for the division, because it could just mean Jon Jones rides off into the sunset again, or it could mean maybe he's changed his mind and he wants to fight Tom Aspinall. But I think it's a little bit of murkier territory. If Alex Pereira beats Jon Jones, I think it's a little more interesting, because I do think Alex Pereira will be willing to fight either Ciryl Gane or Tom Aspinall, and hasn't been presented that opportunity yet. But I also don't blame him for not trying to shortcut that and going after Jon. Jon's the biggest name in the division. Alex is probably the second biggest name in the division just by default, like if he actually comes up to heavyweight. So you're doing the biggest fight you could possibly make. But I don't know what a Jon Jones win means ultimately. I'm kind of confused at what it could potentially mean.
Dean, imagine if Alex Pereira actually beats Jon Jones. We haven't even thought about that.
I mean, I actually think
it's said it, and it's whoa.
I think it's very possible. I really do. I think after seeing what Alex Pereira has been able to do, and this guy, you just keep giving him more time to get better, more time to get comfortable in the sport, more time to just his IQ gets higher every time. And he's had a cheat code all along. A lot of people have often disregarded Glover Teixeira as his mentor. Like Glover Teixeira has been one of the best light heavyweights in the world for a very long time. He's an old school guy with an old school mentality, and he's been the cheat code for Alex Pereira. And he's, to me, one of the biggest reasons why Alex has had so much success. And now you couple that with the fact that you've given him the experience of the bright lights and the stardom, and he's been able to do so well with that. I mean, the sky is still the limit for Alex Pereira. I would not be surprised if he went out there and knocked out Jon Jones.
Isn't this a crazy like kind of situation in terms of looking at Tom Aspinall? Like Alex Pereira loses to Magomedov. Everybody came out and said he was washed. Everybody came out and said he was done. Magomed was a huge favorite coming into the rematch. Like, this could be the future for Tom, in my opinion, right? Where it's like, you just remind people who you really are. You had an off night, and in this case, it wasn't even his fault. It was an eye poke, and you just remind people who you are in the rematch. So it makes me hopeful for what could be possible for Tom. But I'm kind of big on this idea of, if Alex Pereira can come in and beat Jon Jones, and then at the end of the year fight the winner of Gane or Tom Aspinall for the title, I think he might be the GOAT of MMA. I think he might have speed run the GOAT of MMA conversation.
All right, but here's the thing, though. In terms of Tom Aspinall, he's got to be very careful about who he listens to in situations like this if he wants to come back and do what he is capable of doing. He has to get all the talks of, I don't know if we're going to re-sign with the UFC. He's got to ignore everything that's happening. He's got to ignore the media. He's got to ignore the fans. He's got to get right back on the horse and become that student that he once was that got him where he is in the first place. He's got to ignore all this external stuff and just get right back on the horse, get right back in the room and prove it. Because if he starts listening to the fans and the media, that'll discourage him. If he starts talking about, I don't know if we want to re-sign, that'll just discourage him from wanting to come back and being the best in the world. So it's going to be very important these next couple of months of who he's listening to and the type of input that's getting in his head.
I feel bad for him, man. He's going to be walking down the street. People are going to be yelling shit at him. Like, you know how these fans are. And you go from being so loved to all this criticism. That's hard to do, especially when you're as young as Tom Aspinall.
Do you think in the UK, though, do you think, like, if he's walking down the street in the UK, he's going to get that? Because I feel like if he stays home, if he stays where he's at, I think the people will still be behind him. You'll get him next time, champ. Like, we know how that goes. He's got a massive support system. I think he'll be okay there. If he starts traveling, if he makes if he does a seminar in the US or somewhere else, now it might get dicier in terms of what he's hearing on the street. But I think he'll be okay back home.
I think he's off social media as well, so you won't see any of that chatter, which will be really good. But You know what's good for him? Next fight, people are really going to not expect much from him. So he can go out
Yeah,
there kind of more of an underdog and do
it
that. Dean,
flipped.
it flipped it around.
Ciryl
That's
Gane
right.
has the pressure all on him, and now Tom Aspinall is the one with less pressure.
Kyle B,
Incredible.
given how much MMA has grown over the years, Dean, why are there still so few promising heavyweight prospects? I guess, yeah, the only one I can really think of is Gable Stevenson outside of the UFC right now. Maybe a couple others.
Yeah, well, Gable is obviously to me the number one prospect in the world right now. I just think that heavyweight MMA has always been weak, and I think that just it comes down to the gyms and the training. I just think like when guys are a certain size, they never feel like they need to learn how to fight. So you don't really get a lot of guys in the gyms. Like, I'm in Philly a lot. There's 50, 60 guys on the mat, and maybe like 4 guys are over 200 pounds. Like just big guys. They're either big and sloppy and fat, or they're playing football.
Yeah.
It's
Other sports, right, Rick?
it's a population thing, right? There's a reason why I think lightweight has always been the best division in MMA is because most guys are that size, right? You're a 5'10" to 6'1" ish, 170, 180 walking around weight guy. There's just a bigger talent pool of potential athletes at that size. At heavyweight, when you're talking about being a 240, 260-pound athlete who's lightning fast and has all this power, you're really either going to be in boxing, you're going to be in the NFL. Like even look at Jon Jones. His brothers are football linemen. Like that's just how that goes. There's more money to be made there than being the heavyweight champ. It's just difficult, as Dean said. Like you're not walking around the gym seeing all these like 200+ pound guys that are lightning fast and super athletic. They're probably in an NFL locker room somewhere, in the NBA if they're big enough, or elsewhere. But there's also just less of them in the population. There's a bunch more lightweights. There's a bunch more welterweights that are walking around than there are heavyweights on planet Earth.
And after seeing what's happening to Tom Aspinall, like, who wants to go through this? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, why? Let me just put on a helmet and just sack people and not have to worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Who wants to go through this?
And that's the crazy thing about Tom Aspinall. If you look at him like, NBA prospect, NFL prospect, Tom Aspinall is an MMA prospect, as in he's been doing it from a young age leading to this moment, and he's had to experience all this craziness. I feel so bad for him. All right, quickly before we wrap up, couple of fights happened on the card. Umar was able to get through Batista, but of course, Batista is a lot tougher than what people give him credit for. Dean, how would you describe Umar's return win? Are you impressed with what you saw? I think Mario Batista was almost the star of the night with that knee that he threw in the second round. The fact that he would refuse to be held down, the fact that he kept trying to fight no matter what. I was so impressed with Batista in that losing effort as well.
It was pretty much what I expected, though. I know how good Batista is. I just figured that he would be a step behind all night. I just figured Umar was just a little bit better, just with his where he comes from and so on. But I knew Batista would be game, though. He's worked hard to get here. It's just sometimes the other guy's just a little bit better, and I think that's what happened in this fight. And no disrespect to Batista, great fighter. Umar's just a little better. Same thing that happened to his teammate Marcus McGee against Petr Yan. Marcus McGee is an absolute savage. Petr Yan's just a little bit better.
Yeah. Do you give him much of a chance in a rematch against Merab here, New York Rick?
Oh,
Umar?
You got to. He won the first 2 rounds and then he broke his hand and he looked like he was doing well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to pick anybody against Merab. I think he's the best pound for pound fighter on the planet. I think he's untouchable. But the best chance has got to be with Umar, right? And I think Umar and Merab are a cut above everybody else. Respect to Petr Yan, who has an opportunity here against Merab. I think the 2 best fighters in this division are Merab, followed by Umar Nurmagomedov, because they have one skill that I don't think you can counter with being well-rounded, right? We saw it in this fight where Batista is extremely well-rounded. He's dangerous everywhere against everybody else. But when Umar gets to that grappling phase of the game, he's a cut above, and he's a cut above everybody, maybe save for Merab. When you look at Merab versus Corey, right? Corey's one of the most well-rounded guys on the planet. He's one of the most dangerous guys in every phase of the game. But when it comes to that cardio, when it comes to those spam takedowns, like you can't stop Merab. And so they have this cheat code. They have this thing that I think puts them a cut above everybody else. I think they're the 2 best. I want to see it. I think Merab will be able to get through Petr Yan successfully and set up a rematch for, spring of next year or something like that.
Yeah, well said, Rick. Dean, Mackenzie Dern is now UFC champion. It took her about 15 fights to reach that. You have to give it to her because of her determination, not giving up, coming back and improving her game to be able to win this title. How would you describe the win that we saw? And do you think that this is a new day for the strawweight division?
Absolutely. And this is exactly the fight that I expected. I picked her to win in exactly that way. I thought that she was the better striker. She has more power in her hands. I thought she was slightly the better athlete. I thought that she would lose the wrestling exchanges early, but her jiu-jitsu would be good enough to thwart the offense of Virna Jandiroba. But I thought Mackenzie Dern was going to steal them late rounds. I've never really seen her get tired in a fight. She may have been hurt in fights, but I've never really seen her get tired. And I thought she was going to gut it out, and she did exactly that. Now, I caught a lot of heat for my comments before, but that wasn't on me. That was on MMA, honestly, because no one really – and it's in fact – I said the biggest story of the fight was the fact that I said that it was insignificant. And I was like, that should not be the biggest story of the fight. The fact that I said that it was insignificant and the pictures that of Mackenzie Dern, that seemed to be the biggest selling point of the fight. Now that it's over, it seems to have made sense. But the reality is I knew it was going to be a great fight. The first fight between them two were the great fight. I knew it was going to be a great fight, and I actually thought that it needed more attention, which is why I said that it was insignificant, because I thought it deserved more attention.
Yeah, and Rick, UFC looking after Mackenzie Dern a little bit here, the daughter coming into the cage, the shot of her daughter holding the belt as DC is interviewing her in that post-fight interview. It really feels like they can get behind her, or are looking to get behind her and push her out there.
Yeah, I mean, as you would, right? She got this opportunity. There was some criticism of this opportunity for her, right? Because Virna is very much clearly the one who belonged in that title fight. But there was some criticism around, like, does Mackenzie Dern, quote unquote, deserve it? I think deserve is the stupidest word in MMA. Like, it just doesn't exist. It's not real. Like, this is fight promotion. It's not a meritocracy, and it never has been. But this idea that Mackenzie Dern deserved it, like, she proved that she deserves it. She's on this stage and she was able to beat Virna Jandiroba, who I think everybody had as the clear number one contender, and she proved it on the night. I threw Volkov some bail earlier. I'm throwing Dean some bail here. I thought his comments, made a lot of sense in terms of, the attention on this fight was what it was. And if his comments were the number one thing that everybody was talking about, that kind of proves the point and says what people thought of this fight. I think the biggest problem that the UFC is facing with a lot of these fights is people know that they are not the best in their weight class, right? Mackenzie Dern is the UFC champion, but she is not the best in her weight class. If Zhang Weili wanted to come down right now, I would favor her big to win that title back. And it's an unfortunate way we've done this, where these people that are going up for championship status, right? We see it with Ilia Topuria. We see it with Islam Makhachev. It's hard to believe that Alexander Volkanovski is the best 145-pound fighter on the planet when we saw what Ilia Topuria did to him. And we would believe that if Ilia Topuria were to go back down, he would be able to do that. So it lessens these titles. It makes it harder for fans to get behind it and believe that these are the rightful owners of this title. It's hard for people to believe that Islam Makhachev is not the number one 155-pound fighter on the planet. He did not lose that title the same way Ilia did not lose that title, the same way Zhang Weili did not lose that title. So I do think it takes attention and proper respect away from some of these titles the way they've handled this. I would much rather see the champions go up and challenge, but it opens up this whole can of worms that Conor McGregor opened and now the UFC never wants to open again. But, look, you can build on Mackenzie Dern being the champion. You have to expect that if Zhang Weili loses to Valentina Shevchenko, it's going to get a little bit dicey, because what happens if Zhang Weili now comes back down and says, I'm taking that belt back? It'd be hard sledding for the UFC, who now invested in the idea of Mackenzie Dern being champion, and Zhang Weili has a potential to upset that apple cart. If she wins, maybe she stays at 125, but at least now you've got a proper rival, right? It's harder to sell Virna versus Zhang Weili. You could maybe do a little bit better with Zhang Weili versus Mackenzie Dern. So we'll see what happens from here, but I do think the UFC has done themselves a disservice in how they've kind of handled some of these champions moving up.
You know what? Once the cards are free, though, Dean, I think that's going to fix a lot of issues too, because I feel like whenever people pay money and a card doesn't deliver, or it doesn't have the name value that they want, there's always a complaint. But when it's free on your TV on Paramount Plus or whatever it is, the subscription in the States, I think there's a little bit more leniency.
We're talking about MMA fans. They are going to complain no matter what.
They'll find a reason. Over here, it'll still be because it's on pay-per-view. All right, as we finish up, we were talking about the heavyweight division. What about this head kick from Quillin? I think that one of the highlights of it was this knockout. Have a look at that. Look at that beautiful knockout. 10 days notice, flies from Perth all the way down there and lands that beautiful finish right there. Let's look at it one more time. Absolute masterpiece, a thing of beauty from Quillin. That's what you want to see, isn't it, fellas? As a 10 days notice.
Kind of not, right? I mean, you want to see it, but it's like, and Nasrat Haqparast.
If you're Quillin's team,
Yeah, but Nasrat Haqparast has been known to have a good chin and been able to take a decent shot. And that just, I mean, that really flatlined him. And it was a bit disturbing after a while to see that, but just beautiful technique. And you know, if you're from Australia right now, you're still having a pint because I mean,
How about this?
that
He's from
good.
Perth, Australia.
Yeah.
JDM, him, Ursig. Man, I don't know what's going on over there in the water in Perth. Usually that place isn't the most happening place in Australia, but go over there. Go check that out. And by the way, while you're checking stuff out, Fight Court, Dean Thomas, what's happening this week on the show?
Just talking the same stuff we were talking today.
Perfect, man. Well, there's going to be a lot more to talk about. I'm sure more stuff's going to pop out over the next few days. The future of Tom, how's his eyes, all the stuff with the heavyweight division. Rick, boys in the back, is that the highest views you guys have done for a watch-along? Crazy views yesterday for UFC 321.
The Jake Paul Mike Tyson watch along did some crazy numbers, but that was a good one. Thank you to everybody who always watches along with us, and check out the Ariel Helwani show tomorrow because we'll have some great guests.
And of course, the new documentary series with Casey as well. Check that out. A big episode on BKFC and more happening around the corner. That is it. Here for Submission Radio Morning After. Dean Thomas, Eric, New York Rick, Eric Jackman. Thank you so much for joining me. That is it, guys. Thanks for joining us. Crazy times. Hopefully things get better. We'll see. Take care, guys, and have a great week. Thanks for joining us.